To all intents and purposes, the Collender family of Brea, California, seemed to be a solid and intact family. From what I saw online, the father, Richard, was an attorney. He may still be. I don't think he's practicing anymore. And the rest of the Collenders, their lives seemed to be on target and going places. They had meaning. That image of a solid and intact family was shattered on June 30th, 2010, when Julian was shot to death by Officer Sean Neal of the Brea Police Department. The family brought a lawsuit against Brea Police Department and against Officer Sean Neal in particular. I'm trying to summarize this quickly. Their version of events basically is that Julian was coming home one night, and Officer Neal and several other police officers got out of their vehicles, pointed guns at him, shouted various commands, and without any provocation fired on Julian. The District Attorney's Office of Orange County, California conducted an investigation in order to determine if there was any criminal behavior or malfeasance from Officer Sean Neal. Their findings were quite to the contrary of what the Collenders alleged happened to Julian. Quoting from the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 17, "The one who states his case first seems right, until the other comes along and examines him." Our system of justice in Western countries is built on this. Not just hearing one side, but hearing both sides or all sides and then reaching a conclusion based on the evidence. And the evidence was that Julian was not an innocent victim of a police shooting. The District Attorney of Orange County interviewed 37 people, including eyewitnesses to the shooting. They reviewed police video footage of Julian's detainment and shooting. And they interviewed other people, particularly people who were victims of a robbery earlier that evening. Forensic and toxicology testing showed that Julian was an addict to Oxycontin, and he had high levels of oxycodone in his system when he was confronted by the police. The whole reason why the police were called to his house that night was because a few hours earlier, Julian and his friend, 21-year-old Adela McCormick, drove to the Easy Takeout burger joint in Yorba Linda in Julian's red Nissan Sentra. It was sometime after 5 p.m. on June 29th. They got out and got into the back seat of a truck that belonged to an 18-year-old driver named Chris, and included passengers Michael and Brianna. So looks like there were 3 victims. Julian pointed a gun at them, a 9mm Beretta. He demanded that the driver give him Oxycontin and everyone else give him money and personal property. His partner Adela was later arrested, and she basically told police the whole story of what really happened, as did the 3 victims. Apparently, the victims knew Julian and Adela. They went to the police station after they were robbed, and they provided the police with Collender's name, his car description, and therefore Officer Salcido drove to the Collender home that evening just before 11:30. He summoned his partner, Sean Neal, to meet him there. The red Nissan was parked out front, and for a while, the officers didn't see any activity in the house. And suddenly, Neil, who was hiding in an unmarked police vehicle. He saw Julian exit the house just like someone running out of a burning building. Now here's where Julian's behavior got really outrageous. Julian got into his car, the red Nissan. He backed up. He pulled up right next to Sean Neal's unmarked police car. He shined a light inside, looked around. Officer Neal was laying down. He reclined the seat back and was laying down. And then, after a few seconds, he drove off. Then Julian did a U-turn and came back to the car. Again, he shined a light inside, looking for somebody. Then he approached the car. He was in a couple of feet of Neal's car, shined a light inside for 10 more seconds. Now remember, the police had just gotten a report that this guy robbed 3 people at gunpoint. And Officer Neal didn't know what to expect. When police are called to a robbery situation, anything could happen. At this point, Officer Neal decided to get out of the car and confront Julian. He exited the car with an assault rifle. Some people may wonder, why are police carrying assault rifles? Well, ever since the North Hollywood bank shootout of 1997, when the Los Angeles police were outgunned, the 2 robbers of the bank had superior firepower. Police learned from that, and police departments everywhere started to arm up because they didn't want to be outgunned. So anyway, Officer Neal exited his vehicle, pointed his rifle right at Julian and told him to get his hands up. He identified himself as a police officer. He told him to put his hands up, drop to the ground, and Julian didn't comply. He started walking backwards with his arms slightly extended to his sides, just walking backwards. And then Julian suddenly he reached into his pocket to grab something. And now it's like fight or flight. And Officer Neal killed him with one shot when Julian did that, reached into his pocket. The investigation showed that he had no gun on him at the time. The 9mm Beretta that he used to rob his friends it was inside the house. They found it later when they searched the house. So he had apparently put it inside a room in the house and walked outside. And, apparently he was so high on Oxycontin that he just didn't want to obey the police. That's essentially what happened, and that's why this poor guy at 25 years old just put himself in an early grave. This is so sad. I would imagine I don't have a big channel, but I would imagine some of you listening to this are from other states, possibly other countries. You've had similar situations happen in your own states and in your own municipalities. Police shootings. Anyway, Julian's father was an attorney. I think he practiced law, family law, but he didn't accept the findings of the district attorney that Officer Neal did not commit a criminal act, that the shooting was justified. So he took it all the way to the U.S. District Court. He took it to a federal court in a civil rights issue. The federal court in 2016, 6 years later, ruled against the Collenders. And they exonerated Officer Neal and the Brea Police Department. And what can I say, folks? Please, Romans 13 tells us plainly, obey the higher authorities. The magistrate is God's servant. God gave him a sword. He does not bear the sword in vain. He will use it to punish the criminal and the wicked. I don't think Julian was a wicked guy in his heart, but drugs do weird things to you. And when you're addicted, very docile and loving people can become bad. As I said in my video just yesterday about Ashley McDonald, who tried to attack the police with a knife and she was shot. As I said, don't do drugs, obey the law, and honor God. And we won't have very, very tragic situations like this. This is another case in Orange County, California, that instead of people demonizing drugs, they turned against the police, and they made this whole case a referendum against the police. And listen, the police weren't to blame. Police don't always do the right thing, and sometimes they do criminal acts, but in this case there was no criminal act. Julian could have prevented this whole situation had he been clean and sober and law-abiding. Please do what Romans 13 says, obey the higher powers. If you do that, you can truly rest in peace when you die.